And I think that that's one thing that I always explain this to a lot of people is that construction managing and all of that, a lot of it is you're just managing people. I often call myself a glorified babysitter. I babysit grown adults, and when they do what they're supposed to do, my job is pretty easy. But oftentimes they don't, or drawings are incorrect or inaccurate, and so then we work to solve the problem. And I've been in a very good position where I am able to create and maintain, kind of this we're working together culture on these projects, that the contractors, the subcontractors, the design team, that we're all in it together to deliver this project. That's not always easy, but that's been my ethos, and I take approaches to all different aspects of the projects that way, that we're in this together. Like, you're in business to make money, we're in business to make money, so let's figure it out together. And I think that approach was really new and fresh to a lot of the subcontractors we were working with at the time. So I gained a lot of trust from them. And I often wanted to listen to them and their solutions and how we would talk about, this is what I want, so how do we achieve it? And I think they really enjoyed being given the ability to use their skill set. Whereas I think at times the architects and design professionals, oftentimes we get in our own way and we want to tell the subcontractors or the tradesmen in the field, we want to tell them how to do their job. And I think that is a critical point in the industry that it hurts us. It hurts our industry as the architect. You talk to contractors, and anytime you tell me you're an architect, you'll get an eye roll like, well, you're not wearing black, you can't be an architect. So I think, there are clearly very warranted stereotypes around our industries.
Well, my question would be, I think you started this off by saying much of it was when you worked with the people from the trades, you realize often that we, as architects, they kind of school them, and there's an attitude where we know it and you're kind of following orders. Whereas you went in wanting to listen and the ideas to come from them. I think for you, I think it's more seamless because of the internship you had, the work you had, your mentor. You spoke a common language. You were bridging these two worlds because of this language you developed between the two worlds. Mm-hmm. Since you were part of it and navigating it successfully, Aaron, would you be able to identify for us what those challenges are when you don't speak the same language?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and I think one of the main things for me, and I think it's often a lot of younger architects coming out of school, I think it's a really good practice for them to visit project sites as often as possible. I think one of the biggest disconnects, and we often joked about it when we were building projects for other architects that I didn't necessarily draw or whatever. And again, very talented architects, but there was always kind of this common theme that we were just like, make it look like the picture, and one of the things that I think it helped me the most on was I better understood how to draw things to be more accurate at how it would be built. And I think that was a huge change in my practice. Oftentimes there were some projects that I would be brought in on, and we would get drawings, and the ownership would come to us and be like, this is way over budget, we don't understand. And we would look at the details and we'd be like, well, you can't physically build it the way that it's drawn. So that means the contractors who are bidding on it, they are putting in money, like they we call it figure it out money. They have to spend a lot of time and effort to figure it out. And when that happens, your costs go up. So those are a lot of things that I learned being a bit more involved with the trades, is that I really wanted to know, okay, what I'm drawing, is that right? Is that wrong? What should I draw? How should I make this easier for you to understand? So that helps the whole path through construction. It helps when they're doing their preliminary estimates. It helps when they're doing, the buyout and trying to get contracts in place. And then it helps it build it and manage it. I think when I work on our projects now, and when I put together estimates, I make assumptions about a lot of things. But I go back and I sit down with my design team and I make sure that my assumptions are reflected in the drawing packages. Because I think one of the things that I also clicked, it's like the drawings, how they relate, but it's also recognizing that what we draw is a contract. And, there's a reason that they're called contract documents. And I don't think school really spends enough time teaching young architects about the realities of the contractual obligations that piece of paper hold. And that we're asking a general construction manager to interpret our thoughts, our, maybe years of meetings and planning, and they're, we're asking them to interpret that and how much that will actually cost. And there's a massive amount of risk that they have to take often. And so our jobs are to deliver an amazing, thoughtful, designed project while also coordinating all of the mechanical systems and plumbing and electric and life safety and all of that, but also giving the general contractors a good set of drawings that they can build from, put accurate numbers together, and then provide, at the end of the day, all of our client a good price for their project. So I think one of the biggest, kind of barriers that I think exists is, architects, we show up to the job sites and are all black and whatever. And I think it's just accepting that these tradesmen have been doing what they're doing for quite some time. Ask questions. Don't be scared or intimidated by them. And I think that goes a long way to show them that you're not this, I'm above the trades type of architect. I want to get in here. I want to get down and dirty with you and understand the project better. So for me, that was the main thing that I started with, was asking questions, and trying to better understand. I think, one thing I've learned through my career is also knowing when you're right and pushing the trades to see things your way. And that, again, those were some, because I had things drawn on one particular project. I had them drawn and I had it worked out. I had it figured out. And the trades, I think we struggled. They were initially struggling with it. And then once I got them to see my vision, it all clicked for them. And then they worked really hard to deliver that vision. So I think that's the other aspect, is trying to get the buy-in on the end game, from the trades. I think that's really important, is getting their buy-in on the project. And this isn't just at the high level, at the project managers, or even at, at some level, depending on the project scale. It's, it's the guys that are hanging the drywall, the foreman, and it's working directly with those guys. So is there a magic bullet? No. You're going to have some tradesmen that don't want to work directly with you, or they just are going to be a seasoned veteran that have their way of doing that. And that's okay. You just have to, it's just like working in any other industry. You just kind of deal with those people in a slightly different way. I will say this. I do believe that, honestly, one of the things that has helped me in my role is that I grew up waiting tables and working in a restaurant. Okay. I think that growing up in that industry, it forces you to be a very quick problem solver and have to resolve, people's conflicts very quickly, because they want their food, they want their drink if it's wrong. And I think that, when you're dealing with people like that from a restaurant and from the industry, I think that makes dealing with trades and people at a higher level easier, because so I will say that growing up in that industry, I always tell people that I think that should be mandatory, that everybody must wait tables at some point in their life.
What kind of a restaurant were you working at, Aaron?
It was a local, it's actually my family's restaurant, but they were like a bar and grill.
Bar is not easy to handle, I'm guessing, no?
No, they're not.
So that's where the people management 101 started for you.
Correct, exactly. I think that's where it comes from, is if you can manage a bar and a restaurant full of, drunk Cardinals baseball fans, then you can manage a job site. No matter how many 3D renderings and how many drawings you do, until you see a lot of these spaces in person, it is at times hard to see every little aspect. So I think that's going to the site more and just working with the trades is a really critical piece.